It's now time for Energy Insights, where you get an inside view and local perspective of all the oil and gas progress going on in the Mid-Ohio Valley. This program is brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association and can be heard every Saturday at 9 a.m. on WMOA AM 1490, FM 101.3, JAWS Country FM 100.9, and ESPN Radio AM 630 and FM 92.9. Here's Johnny Wharf, your local host.
Energy Insights on a Saturday morning brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association. We're pleased to be joined by Maureen Kertes, and she is with Utica Resource Operating as well. We've had the opportunity to talk with Kevin Rothenbuehler over the last couple of weeks. And is he easier to work for than his name is to say?
Depends on the day.
It depends on the day. I love it. Give me a little background on, and I can call you Mo, right?
Yep.
On Mo Kertes. Give me a little background.
So I actually grew up in the state of Maine and came down to Marietta College to study geology. And after graduation, got a job with Triad Hunter, working on the construction side, pad construction side of things, with all of the pre-construction or pre-drill water sampling, the ENS programs that the states require, and wound up in oil and gas that way. Didn't plan on it, it just happened.
Mo Kertes is our guest with Utica Resource Operating. So your aspirations as a student when you were at Marietta College, certainly you didn't come here from Maine and say, you know what, I'm going to stay here and work when it's all said and done. So talk a little bit about that post-college, or maybe you did internships in there somewhere, but how you end up sticking here, which is what we hope all Marietta College people do.
So it really just happened. I applied for the position with Triad Hunter and got the job. There was no epiphany of me working in Marietta or in oil and gas. I spent 2 summers working in Alaska for state parks, and it really was just right place, right time, as Kevin mentioned in some of his earlier ones, getting that first job right out of college. So there was no plan.
Right, and honestly, when I talked to Kevin, several programs on the show, I thought, man, this guy's young in this business, and then I look at you, and you're even younger. So talk about the makeup of the business in terms of the personnel.
I don't think there's an industry that has any better people than the oil and gas. Starting so young, right out of college, I had many people to look up to and ask questions, and everyone was so helpful with explaining what was going on, why we were doing it this way. I haven't had anybody turn away from me to not explain anything. It's a very open industry. They're very quick to help and explain.
All right, bring it down to Utica Resource Operating in terms of the makeup of the people that work in this business, and we sit at this moment right now doing this program. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that. Are you the youngest, or how does that work? I
am the youngest. There's a couple. The 2 other engineers are very close in age, and I know a lot of companies say we're a family, but I think it's very true for Utica Resource. There's only 7 of us in this office, so we all know each other very well, and we care about each other and each other's families. So it's a very good dynamic and a very easy workspace.
And the Marietta College experience in terms of, as it relates to just the whole, not just the petroleum part, but I'd like to know about that, but the whole experience of 4 years or whatever it was you spent there.
So I spent 4 years. I walked onto the softball team, and that was one of the best decisions I could have made. I still have lifelong friends from the softball team. But it also taught me time management. So playing softball, taking a degree in a science, I always had labs. So it really taught me how to manage my time. And the softball program was great. I was under Coach Arbuckle, and she always expected the highest out of her student athletes.
All right. And then as it relates to this business and particularly Utica Resource Operating, did you just get in ground level or how did that work? What are your primary things you do here?
So when it was PDC Energy, I was an in-house consultant on the environmental side, so working with SPCC plans and water sampling. And when it sold, I became a new hire with the same like safety regulations, permitting, completion reports. And then I have also fallen into an air quality professional role as well, keeping sure all of our air emissions out of our tanks and other equipment is under control and doing the right reporting when it comes to that to the state.
All right. If I'm gentle, can we talk about compliance next week? All right?
Sure.
All right. That was kind of a look away, sure, but we'll let it go at that. Mo Kertes is our guest. She is with Utica Resource Operating, and we learned a little bit about her today. We'll learn some more next week. Right here on Energy Insights, brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Johnny Wharf along with Mo Kertes on Energy Insights on a Saturday morning, and we talked to Mo last week. We talked to Kevin Rothenbuehler several weeks here on the program. Really learned a lot about this great company that's right here in Marietta. And last week, Mo, you talked a little bit about air quality safety. You talked about, I just kind of wanted to get into the compliance end of it. It's got to be a huge topic in the industry, and probably one of the topics that is most misunderstood, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So compliance within the industry, you don't only have the ODNR with oil and gas, but you also have the Ohio EPA that's over the air compliance side of things. And I'd have to say both regulators are very easy to work with, and they'll answer your questions. They'll work with you to make sure you're in compliance instead of coming after you after you're out of compliance. So if you have this air report that you need to submit and you have a question, you just call them up, ask them the question, they'll walk you through it, and you remain in compliance. They're both regulators are very easy to work with to make sure everything's been correctly done.
Do you think it's an advantage for a younger person to keep a cool mind when it comes to compliance, given that when you got into the industry, it was probably at the hotbed, right? And then you think about some of the older guys in it that'd be like, what? Mm-hmm. We've never done it this way, right?
Yeah, so I think being young and in compliance works well because I never had to deal with just letting the salt water out on pads or in the containment. That's never what I had to deal with. So learning the compliance protocols just as I was learning the industry was very helpful. I never knew how they used to do things.
And then we talked to Kevin a little bit about along the way, and maybe your along the way hasn't been that long, but some of the people that you work with, the mentors, maybe even professors that make you shake your head yes like you are right now that kind of helped you.
Yeah, so the geology department at Marietta was very small, so since I'm still in Marietta, I'll see them grocery shopping and we'll sit and chat for 10 to 15 minutes. Same with my softball coaches. My first coworkers out of Triad Hunter. Sometimes we'll still get together up at UGA events or something and get a drink together and reminisce. And then so you always stay in contact with your past and your mentors.
Talk about the connection of what is Utica Resource Operating with you mentioned UGA, and then, of course, you guys are also really close with the SUGA. So talk a little bit about that as it relates to the association.
Sure. So the associations help us a lot with understanding some of the new regulations or compliance programs that come out. They break it down into more manageable terms and understanding. SUGA is always in contact with the ODNR and letting us know what's going on. So it's an extra shoulder to lean on when it comes to understanding, and they're always right on top of things coming out of the state to let us know what's happening.
All right, and then you didn't mention public speaking at Marietta College, but you do that pretty well.
Thank you.
And you're shaking your head like you don't. So I'm trying to get you to shake your head like you do because you really do. Talk a little bit about, as it relates specifically to the business, like when you come in, A, I hope you can't wait to get to work, and B, what is it that kind of keeps you awake at night thinking, I got to do this?
So I do enjoy coming to work. When we had to work from home during COVID, it was very tough. I think the relationships in our office, we all work very well together and lend a helping hand when we need it. So coming back into the office, it's always nice just to be able to walk down the hall and ask your questions. And that part it's not hard to get out of bed to come to work in the morning. What keeps me up at night would probably be if I submitted the correct report or if there was a mistake on the report I submitted. But normally I double check my work frequently.
All right. That's what makes us the best, and that's Mo Kertes. She is good at what she does. I can tell by talking to her. Utica Resource Operating is the business. Energy Insights is the program. It's brought to you by Suga. Thank you very much, Mo. I appreciate it. I'm back same place, same time next week. Energy Insights on a Saturday morning. Johnny Wharf along with Mo Kertes, and she is with Utica Resource Operating. And we've had a chance to get to meet this young lady in the oil and gas industry, and we appreciate her information that she makes us a little smarter every week, and that's kind of why we're here with this program. I wanted to talk about we talked with you about the idea that you got into this business at such a young age and recently, so that you're kind of ahead of the new curve, if you will, as it relates to the business. But talk about trying to get everybody up to speed. And again, as Kevin said, something changes every day, right, in the industry. It doesn't mine as well. So talk about maybe some of the opportunities out there, whether it's conventions or classes or anything like that.
Sure. There's always changes when it comes to oil and gas, and there are multiple conventions that will allow you to have a continuing ed. So if a new air permitting package comes out, there'll be a class on how to run through that. Or if there's a new IR camera, there'll be classes on certification on using the cameras. Or even on the production side, there could be new production technology that we're not using that's been out for the last maybe 2 years. And that's really now catching on to the mainstream. Our production guy can go out and learn about that and see if that applies to our wells and if it would help our production. So there's always classes, conventions, certifications that you can get to improve and learn the new technology that's coming out every single year.
What's an IR camera?
So it's an infrared camera. It can detect methane or VOC leaks on site, so it helps us catch a leak. So when we turn a well on, one of the connections might not be tight enough, so we'll have a camera, and we'll make sure to catch that as quickly as possible so we don't vent to the air.
I knew that. I just wanted to make sure the listeners got to know what the IR camera was that detects whatever you said. But anyway, no, that's cool stuff. I had a chance on this program, and opportunities like this happen. It's really cool. But I was lobbying for my industry in D.C. I meet, and Brian Chavez was there, and we went to the EPA and did some shows with Andrew Wheeler, which was fascinating. And I wanted to ask you about, in terms of your associations, and we talked a little bit about Suga and UGA, but there's so many issues that come up at that federal level. And will they come and say, we're going to go talk about this? What do you think? Will they get information like that from you guys? In terms of saying, what should we be fighting for or that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I think that's the benefit of UGA. You have all the different operators kind of collaborating to one association. So UGA can send out an email like, how does the operators feel about this current rule coming down at the federal level? And they'll make sense of it and put it into lawyer speak and be able to go and fight and maybe make changes or comments to that current regulation.
And you talked about this a little bit, and I heard on my radio station actually today that it was like one of those Sanjay Guptas. If you had a problem, who would you call first? And so you talked about your connection to Merida College, the softball team, the people, your coaches. As it relates to the industry, is there somebody like that?
Honestly, it would probably be Kevin. He's very well versed in many different aspects of the industry, whether from drilling to fracking to the production side of things. So he'd probably be my first call.
right.
He has a very broad general knowledge of everything.
All right, and that is Kevin Rothenbuehler, and the business is Utica Resource Operating. And then as it relates to your did other people stick around that were in the petroleum from your college class that you know of? In terms, that's my rah-rah. Yay, Kevin's back to where he grew up after he's been all over, and thank goodness Mo's stuck around here because we love having people like you around. So can you think of anybody else?
I don't know about anybody because I was in the geology department, but I know multiple petroleum engineers that have moved to Houston. During some asset sales that happened, they had to move to Houston. There was a geology person 1 year ahead of me who's still local in the area working for a disposal company, but most of everybody I graduated with aren't even working in oil and gas anymore.
All right. Well, I consider you a hook, so if you can reel somebody back,
Sure.
Try to do that, all right?
I will.
All right. Mo Kertes is our guest, and she is with Utica Resource Operating. Energy Insights is the program brought to you each and every Saturday morning right here on this station by Suga.
Thank you for listening to Energy Insights, brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Tune in every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. on WMOA Local Radio, JAWS Country, and ESPN Radio, as Johnny Wharf brings you your local and inside perspectives going on in the oil and gas industry right here in the Mid-Ohio Valley.